What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to this episode of Split Screen D&D, the place where we're attacking all things Dungeons & Dragons from both sides of the screen. My name's Tom Quinn, resident Dungeon Master here at Modern Myth.
And I'm Josh Winans, resident player character here at Modern Myth.
And this one's going to be straightforward, real simple, locking horns, a battle of the ages. We're talking about XP versus milestone leveling, basically progression in general, and certainly any other thoughts that you have. But these, I think, are the two big archetypes of how your character progresses through their mechanical arcs.
Yeah.
And let's talk about that.
Yeah, but first shut your mouth, because we love you guys out there, because you are just amazing. We got, oh man, the subscribers are coming in. The comments are always fire. The like button just keeps getting hit. But you know what? I bet some of you haven't hit it yet, and you need to hit it. The thumbs up, I mean. And that would be awesome. Sharing the video, holy cow, has been also extremely huge. So if you're like, hey, I bet John Bob would really enjoy watching this video, send it to John Bob.
And he would.
He's a good guy, like John Bob. And if you want to support us directly and bless all of you who are choosing that route, check us out on patreon.com/modmyth. But XP versus milestones, the age-old debate.
I don't think it's that old.
It's super. It's as old as time itself.
As old as 5th edition, I think, roughly. I'm not sure when they actually started rolling over to milestone, but obviously, I would actually go so far as to say, I may catch some correction here in the comments, but I would guess that more 5th edition tables are using milestone than XP.
Ooh, that's a good. We should do. How do you do polls?
When we hit 500 subs, guys, we can start rocking the polls. We can start doing all the community cool engagement stuff, and we love doing that stuff. So help us push there before the end of the year.
Poll.
Anyway, but yeah, so I mean, in my interactions with other 5th edition tables, I think broadly speaking, milestone has become the standard for the 5th edition space. Obviously, you can do it either way. Yep. Either one works just fine. I'm sure there's many 5th edition tables out there who are using the XP system. Yep. But obviously, earlier editions, that number goes to essentially 0. I mean,
right. Well, based on our OSR little one shot we did, I could not imagine not using XP. Like
it doesn't work. As far as I'm concerned, it does not work.
Right.
And that is actually going to outline the entire crux of everything I have to say on this.
Right.
Is there is good reason that 5th edition has moved to milestone.
All right.
Because I think of the two systems, I actually think XP is a better system. It's a fairer system.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But the method by which 5th edition tells you that you acquire XP is flawed. It creates a poor incentive structure for doing the thing that people are doing with 5th edition a lot, which, let's call it this very narrative forward, in some cases, thespian-esque. I think that aligns really, really well with milestone.
100%.
But I think that's not the motivating factor in the move. I don't think the move was, hey guys, we've got this different way of playing the game and milestone works better. It's the way in which 5th edition has attempted to instantiate XP deliverance doesn't make it only makes sense if you're running a Diablo clone.
Yeah.
It really does not reinforce the type of gameplay that I just described, nor does it reinforce even an old school mentality of gameplay. I don't think it does it successfully. And for a very long time, I was pretty adamantly opposed to the concept of gold for XP. Over time, I have come to appreciate how elegant the delivery of that system is in terms of enforcing the types of motivations you want at a table.
Yeah.
But talk with me from the player perspective and from your specific perspective.
Yeah.
milestone versus
Yeah, absolutely.
XP. And, we'll start
And I
getting
do
in
want
the
to
weeds.
clarify, from here on in, I'm probably much going to be speaking to the 5e experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
And I think I am as well.
Okay, cool. So for me, this was a conundrum when I thought it, because of the way my mind works and versus what we play. So to be completely candid, we use the milestone system at our table. But in 4E, we did use the XP method. Question, how diligent were you with the XP method? Were you just like, oh, you just threw us XP, or were you actually calculating?
No, I calculated when I built an encounter, I knew what the XP for the
Okay,
encounter
cool.
was. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So,
What do you take me for, man? What do you
Dude.
take me for over here?
I don't know if you remember the state of mind
true.
we were.
That's true. There was some inebriated
Those are our younger
beer
days.
and pizza and dice nights going on.
that
but
was we were
nope,
crazy.
Through the fog, I still managed to calculate all of the XP. A lot of times because that's when I was doing prep, not when I was actually playing. So
Better to
Yeah.
sweat in preparation than bleed in the battlefield. But so for me personally, though, I still, because this is the way that I've seen how it works, I do prefer the milestone method.
okay.
And it really does. I think you're absolutely right. I'm going to be honest. I'm sure I looked at Once Upon a Time. I looked at the XP table to see like this action gets this XP and this action gets this XP. I don't remember it. And I don't remember being flawed. I'm going to take your word for it. But what I love about let's start with the pros. What I love about the milestone is kind of what you hit it on the head. When you are you're telling this story, if you're following the traditional, you got the client, you got the conflict and all this stuff, and you have that climax. And then what happens when you reach that climax? Well, gosh darn it, I want some rewards. I want to feel as if I've made progress, that my character has made progress from this climax. And it could work that if you're a very good DM and you're planning out all like, oh, they're gonna get this much XP, I'll make sure that they get their level. Sure. But I could see it at like sometimes like you might get your level right before the big boss. And all of a sudden,
which might feel really good too, but
it might, but I think it's taking away like, as you clean the blood of the demon off of or whatever demons bleed, off of your armor, being like,
magma.
Hot liquid magma, with sharks with freaking laser beams on their head. But it just feels so much more rewarding that you grew into a new person after the climax. Like that just fits within the story narrative that 5e tries to embrace.
Well, and I think effectively the milestone method hands the DM the ability to more reliably map out narratively important moments for the leveling. And like I said, while I think that does hold hands really well with that style of play, I think that I think the big thing is milestone leveling, unless you're being really, really stingy, just kind of disappears. You just don't, like, players don't have to think about it.
Yep.
DMs don't have to think. I mean, they have to think about it in their prep and how, but it kind of evaporates. It's not a forefront element of the game, which if you're playing where you're actually crunching XP as a player, that's motivating you. You're thinking about, like that room represents a lot of XP, whatever the reason it represents that XP. And I think when you're faced with the option of give me this kind of amorphous system for delegating character arc improvement, which admittedly maps really well to a game where you might want to be delivering reward leveling almost in the sense of it being a reward.
I feel like it is.
I think leveling is always a reward, really, but when your option is that versus here's an XP system, but the fundamental means by which you garner XP is killing monsters. that's the disconnect. Because let's say we were playing with
That's what you're saying.
with the XP system.
Yeah.
Well, there's a king who, or a minor lord who has some problem. You know, there's strife amidst some of his advisors, and there are other minor lords making moves, but no immediate hint or whiff of combat or monsters. Or, well, if your primary method. Now, I'll couch this in the fact that a good DM is going to look at a town that's in strife and is interesting for the players and not go, well, you didn't kill any monsters, so this isn't worth anything to you. Sorry.
Yeah.
You know, that's bad move. But that's what the rules kind of enforce. Like I said, they're it's not an exclusive thing, but when you come to a three-way junction in a dungeon.
Go on.
When you come to a three-way junction in a dungeon, or let's just say there's three routes ahead of you.
Okay.
And you can hear the snarling of some horrific beast off to your right.
It's a no-go in milestone right there.
You can hear. Well, in milestone, what incentive do you have to go there?
Yeah, that's almost what I was going to hit on. Maybe more towards the negative. Is like, yeah, you're exactly right. Because if you're battling the big bad, in the XP system, the XP is a part of the reward. If the milestone, it's not. So, as a DM, I have to imagine, okay, you have taken away my reward, right? XP no longer exists. So what are you filling that with?
Yeah.
Is it, again, if you haven't checked out, I think we did the rewards
we
video.
talked about the rewards.
You need to go watch that one because it can give you some great ideas.
We talk about a lot of, and I agree that at the end of an encounter, at the end of, whatever type of encounter it was, combat encounter, social encounter, if you're not sitting there and tallying up what that was worth to you, like that's a price tag that just says, hey, great job killing those monsters. This is what it was worth to you in terms of your growth.
Right.
Hey, great job handling that negotiation. This is what it was worth to you. But they're the tools for building a negotiation and what that should be worth by XP are not forthcoming in 5th edition. That's
right.
And this is why I say it's, that is not an excuse in my opinion to go, well, negotiations aren't worth anything. If you come across some monsters that I fully thought you were going to fight, and you guys have, and when I say monster, let's say that it's a group of goblins, something that's intelligent enough to treat with.
Mm-hmm. And
you guys find some more amicable solution than slaughtering each other.
Weird.
But the thing is if you as a player, if what you have been taught time and time again is that doing that serves no benefit to you, other than like, hey, maybe there's not the attrition of combat. We've already touched many times on how that doesn't mean that much in 5th edition. But on top of that, it's like not only is combat not the threat that it has been in prior editions, but also you're more incentivized to kill these goblins because it's the way XP is given to you.
Right.
You rapidly become a party that looks at every situation going, do we want the XP or do we want to do what would actually make sense from a roleplay standpoint?
Right. So it's you're fighting, you can't figure out what style of D&D you're wanting to play.
Right. And I think Milestone broadly has fixed that. I think it's fixed it in the sense that if you're wanting to play a game that is purely, hey, we're going on this ride, we're telling this story together,
right.
And naturally, as you guys are accomplishing these goals, you're getting better. But that is hugely antithetical to a style of play that like I said, I think you could achieve or strive for in the 5th edition space. The reason I've come around so much to that idea of gold as a form of XP, is because all it does is incentivize you to get to the goal.
Right.
However you do that,
Sneaking,
sneaking,
treating.
combat, treating, you decide what's best for you as a party.
Right.
You get the XP no matter if you killed everything on your way there,
Right.
if you didn't kill anything, if you disarmed every trap, if you
Right.
got crushed by whatever.
Doesn't matter. As long as
It
you get
doesn't
the goal.
matter. And having that end goal, it's also a way of, again, a style of play. I think there's a reason why, like the mega dungeon. Why would you go into a mega dungeon when we're playing milestone? And I'm not talking about you've got an adventure hook taking you there. I'm saying you come across a dungeon and you go down there and you go like, wow, there's 6 rooms and there's another flight of stairs down and there's another, like, we have no real reason to be here.
Unless we've heard through us traveling, hey, there's some good treasure down
Right.
there. Why would we?
So
It's a
you
good point.
need impetus to go there.
Right.
And in some regard, if I need to provide impetus to go there, that's eroding some amount of your agency. You're waiting for me to tell you that there's a reason to be in that dungeon. Whereas if there's just treasure that has experience value to you, you get to decide. It's valuable and worth the risk, or it's not. You decide. I don't have to tell you. You just go, well, there's a hole in the ground and there's good. So
but the obvious, I think the obvious counter to that was like, if all we did was dungeon crawls, that XP to gold, it totally makes sense. The problem in 5e, lots of gameplay is taking place outside of the dungeon.
100%. And that's why I say it's for a different style of game.
No, I see the value in it though.
But it's why I say I like XP better, but not the way 5e is trying to implement it. So in 5th edition, I will take milestone. I will happily run milestone. And like I said, as a DM and for the type of game that we're playing in the 5th edition space, it works beautifully for all the reasons you outlined. Right. Being able to graft in, a pivotal moment that I didn't expect and go, that was huge. This is, there's opportunity there to lend narrative weight through progression.
Yeah.
You have no control. Well, I don't want to say you. Yeah. Well, really, you have very little control through XP system. Because even if I go, well, here's 50 encounters that I've planned out that they could possibly. You don't know. You might engage with one. You might
have no
engage
idea
with 50.
what rooms. Yeah, exactly.
And so I don't know what you're gonna. But again, that's a very different style of play.
Yeah.
I think the gold for XP. The reason I keep going back to this is because like I said, for a long time went. That feels really gamified. That makes no sense to me. Why is gold representing you getting better but in terms of what it achieves, it is super sophisticated. Now,
well, it's so open-ended is why it's beautiful. Like whatever you do to get the gold, as long as you get the gold, congratulations, you get experience.
And so it means that I don't have to do anything by way of motivating you.
Right.
And the system itself isn't motivating you to kill the goblins, treat with the goblins, sneak around the goblins.
Right.
You get to do anything you want that you feel is your strength, without suffering any penalty. Right. And I think there's something to be said for the elegance of what that achieves, for the style of game that we play, and no, it would not work. I agree. Now I think there's some cool opportunity to play around with that notion. Kind of, we talked about taking old school elements and being able to bring them in.
Right.
Bringing in I could see some sort of interesting funhouse dungeon that I could bring into our own game as a means of probably
funhouse dungeons. No, those things are scary, man.
Well, but where I just go like this, like whatever, the mad wizard has captured you and thrown you into his wild funhouse dungeon, and this is entirely separate from the milestone.
Okay.
But for every X amount of gold that if you can leave the dungeon with 1,000 gold pieces, you will have earned yourself another level, a level that
something like that. I like that.
It's which again, it just, your entire motivation in that space changes. And so
XP, and then would you say XP? So XP to gold are kind of tied together.
Well, I think XP to gold increasingly, I've gotten on board with the idea that that achieves what you want out of an XP system.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So
To motivate any other form of play, like if it's through combat, well then combat pillar gets tons of play and stealth and negotiation. Well, if I don't get anything for doing those things, why am I going to do them?
Right.
Like so you're incentivizing a certain behavior.
Yeah.
And that's why I think the gold for XP is the I'm going to actually use I'll say I think is the right way to incentivize a party, because I can't think of a more open-ended means of saying there's the prize.
Right.
If you get it, you win. If you don't, you lose.
Well, okay. So I haven't really thought much about the XP to gold thing, but one thing I like about XP, that leveling system, is it's a very fluid progression. That after every encounter, you get to see like you fought 3 orcs, and you get to see your XP bar
Your XP bar fills
fill up a little bit,
Yeah.
and you do that every time.
Well, I think that anticipation is valuable.
Extremely.
Yeah.
Would you think XP to gold does that still scratch that itch?
I think even more so, because when you get to the gold, now you have to decide how much are you taking out. You fought all the way to get here, or you've snuck all the way here.
Well, that's the thing, is you only get the gold at the end. Versus XP, the thing I like about it is that fluid progression that, I fought 3 orcs. Yeah, they didn't have shit for gold, but guess what? I did see my XP bar rise a little bit.
Well, and to be fair, I think there's a lot of older editions, I can't speak to specifically which ones, that did grant some amount of XP for combat.
Okay.
So it wasn't like, you killed them for... Yeah, but the real... The cost of that, though, is... combat was very dangerous.
Yeah, and thinking
so
OSR wise, yes.
So it was a deal where again, combat was kind of disincentivized,
right?
Or at least it was something that
right.
and so I just think when you go, there's a big pile of experience points right there.
Right.
You did a lot of sneaking to get here. When your pack is laden with gold, how easy is it going to be? Are you willing to ditch that other pack of torches to carry some more XP out with you? Are you willing to? There becomes this push and pull of do we want to get greedy? You can get greedy, or you can play it safe. And I love all of those questions that a party has to ask.
I agree with you in the OSR and the older editions for sure, but I don't like that system. And again, it feels like we're having an argument about different editions more than the systems.
Well, like I said, all of that is purely to outline if you want to run XP, I think that's the way to do it. And because it grafts so poorly into the style of game that we're playing in 5th edition and many other people are, I think that's the milestone system is a symptom of how you motivate players in different ways. By like, why are the players moving down this this collective story narrative game that isn't gold centric? It isn't experience centric. That's not the point.
Okay, so you're just saying the pros of the XP are, in your case, XP to gold system. Yeah, it doesn't fit into 5e, but you see the value in it.
Yeah, well, and specifically to outline why the XP for 5th edition doesn't work. Because if you change it to monsters, it doesn't work. They just want to kill all the monsters.
Right.
If you change it, if it was nothing but negotiation, like you only get experience for negotiating.
I wonder if there's like some homebrew where they got okay, you negotiated successfully, that's 500 XP versus.
Well, I mean, I more or less from the milestone standpoint, like I'll have encounters that you guys are working through, and I'll go like, well, what is a successful negotiation? Negotiating with the Elven Enclave, with General Aurelius. In my mind, I mean, if this absolutely falls apart, or I should say, if this is successful, what is this worth to them beyond the narrative value? Like there is a milestone value to that interaction. If it falls apart, then there's not. But I think rules is written, mostly it said, go kill monsters, get stronger and kill more monsters. And that becomes a very one-dimensional way of thinking about the game.
So well, in that case, then we totally agree that 5e really lends itself to the milestone. Do you find anything lacking in the milestone system that you wish? And in the 5es, we're talking 5e space.
Yeah, I think something I'm not crazy about milestone is I don't like hard systems like structured. Like leveling is a pretty structured thing.
Right.
The more you take something that is hard and fast like that and kind of give it an air of DM fiat. I'm not crazy about that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not crazy about the notion that I am just deciding when you're leveling up. I mean, I have my own system for deciding how that progression is moving, and it's done more in like blocks than individual encounters of like, here's this. Okay, you've begun investigating this mystery at this town. If you solve this mystery, if you solve this mystery A+, maybe there's a certain value
bonus
to that.
levels.
As well, maximum possible take home. What? But all the way down to you don't solve the mystery.
No progression.
The cult destroys the city,
which we still get lots of XP for.
I guess you did kill a whole bunch of people.
You're welcome.
Or you were a party to it. No, but so it's just a deal where I don't like the movement in that direction. Whereas XP, everyone knows exactly what it is that they're getting. And in the spirit of progression, and this is not something that we touched on, though I was kicking myself for not touching on it in the Marshall Caster Divide video, was exactly that. Progression, wizards, different classes progressed at different rates. And this was a big deal. I get the impression you're not a fan of that. I don't know.
I will. Yeah, I want to keep hearing your thoughts before I.
Well, I am a fan of that because one, I like the idea of different. It removes some of the homogenous feeling of, hey, we all leveled, like the party has gotten better,
right? Instead
of I have gotten better. I'm an individual as part of this party.
I can see
that. So partially that, and I think to try and implement variable rates of leveling, 5th edition doesn't call for that at all. Yeah. But to try and implement that in a milestone would simply appear to be DM fiat of going like, you know what?
Yeah.
It's like handing out inspiration. It's the same reason I hate inspiration. I don't want a rule to say when you think someone's done good, give them a pat on the back. Like I don't.
Anyway, you do. You'll give us advantage.
But I much prefer, if I'm going to do it, I much prefer to do it in the moment and go, you crush that. Because everyone at the table is going like, holy like everyone knows it happened.
Yes.
Instead of me going like, hey buddy, you did really good today. Use that whenever you feel like it, because it just
roll on my dick size.
For those who don't know, the first time Kel was viewed completely naked,
micro.
The question of the status of his manhood did come up, and he used his one and only inspiration.
The only inspiration I've ever gotten in my level 12 campaign.
I will also say I've made a vow to myself. I'm only giving one out to anybody,
which is fine. I will not regret that decision. I went from like a 1 to a normal.
Yeah.
So
anyways, for if that wasn't already an obvious course of action for
I don't know when else you'd
Josh,
use an inspiration, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, that's fair. But so again, it feels a little fiat-y to me, where I'm just deciding.
Yeah.
And I wish that was better communicated to the players, because anticipation is such a potent tool.
That's where you have to use it if you wanted to do you're leveling at different times within the milestone. You'd have to let the table know, hey, as Katarina successfully negotiated, you can tell that, she's gotten more confident in her abilities after that. Then I'd be like, okay, I could see why she's leveling. Otherwise, yeah, it could totally feel like that. And I think that's one of the biggest negatives of the milestone is it's totally DM dependent. I have no say when I level.
Right.
So within the system, I'm sure this is a common complaint among most DMs. How many times have I come up to the table? Hey, are we leveling yet? Are we leveling? Hey,
well, DM. I actually don't think as many as you. As Amanda even brought something up similar when I told her we were going to be doing this conversation. I actually don't. I mean, I don't think you guys have prodded me all that much, but certainly it's not an unreasonable question to ask when you have no idea
Yeah.
how close you
no
are.
idea.
Now, I will say, I think you could modify that system such that in the fifth edition kind of bloodied, badly injured, near death, this kind of idea, you could implement something similar to say, like,
You're near death.
You're feeling enlightened. You're
Right.
close. But I don't think there's any there's kind of in the dopamine sense of realizing that you're an encounter or two away from leveling from an XP side.
Right.
You also have to deal with kind of to some extent, the crash when you tick over your level and you're like, okay, the novelty of leveling is worn off. Damn it. Now you're looking at that empty bar again and it's starting to stack.
I guess.
But I think anticipation, in the same way that narratively, that's a tool you should reach for regularly. Knowing that you're creating a situation that your party is anticipating and then confirming or subverting that anticipation is really potent. And I think that because anticipation is such a powerful thing, you don't get that, the way you do with an XP system.
Yeah. So that's, I think, and really you have to have that trust that I'm trusting you to, I believe that you have a general idea of the progression and that you're not skimping out on levels because you just don't know. It's just because it's just not my time yet.
Right. And I think in general, my feelings too with milestone, should not simply be, here's, I guess, a good way of thinking about it is, imagine if you had your main quest hook where you're in, we'll go to Skyrimville for this.
Oh, nice.
You've got your main quest hook. Imagine if you could not gain experience on side quests.
Oh,
so literally there's a series of toll booths that you check through as you move through the main deal that level you up.
Right. But other than that,
and the same I think does need to apply to the milestone system. In that if you guys start going way off on a side quest, maybe a side quest I didn't even intend that was going to, you're just going this direction. I need to instantiate some new milestones within that space.
Yes.
Such that by risking the time it's going to take, the added lethality of pursuing a non-critical objective,
right?
And all sorts of risks in taking that route instead of just continuing down the main path,
right?
That should be rewarded with you guys being closer to your next level or stronger when you come to face the next big milestone in the main quest line.
Yeah.
And that's something that, that needs to balance on an edge, because if knowing that, you could just go, well, if I know that there's this more or less main quest that is, this is emerging as we're playing the game. But if I'm taking every opportunity to do everything in every direction, knowing that I'm stacking my experience pool against that.
But you can counter that easily because you mentioned it, because one of the resources is time.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Beat you, bitch.
And it's a great acknowledgement, because resting on that knife's edge is great. They want some extra experience. They're doing something to get it. Awesome. Other things could be occupying their time right now. Right. And so, and sometimes it's not, sometimes it's like, well, there's nothing mission critical. Of course we can go over here.
Right.
Other times it's obvious that departing is going to cost you.
Right.
So I think that both of those are considerations. And so I don't think there are many DMs who are going, well, you're off on some side quest. I'm not doling out experience through the milestone system for that, because the milestones are part of the main thread. I don't think that's happening a lot, but if it is, seriously reconsider that
yeah.
because you're killing exploration
Yes,
of the game world.
because we're somewhat intelligent, us player characters, and we know what gets us like,
let's,
hey,
let's not get carried away, but keep going.
okay,
keep
so
going.
we're basically monkeys, and if you feed us bananas, we want to do
There
the
it
thing
is.
that got us bananas.
There it is. There it is. I thank you for that analogy. You were starting to
Starting to overshoot my
you were
bounds there.
starting to get a little no, but no, I think that so that's the like I said, I'm not a fan of a system that by outward appearances is just a fiat thing. Again, like there's no way for you to track it the same way
Right.
that with XP you can have that.
Yeah, and I agree with that. But I'm going to switch gears now to talk about the negative of the XP system because you're, again, using Skyrim as a perfect example of exploiting an XP system. I cannot tell you how many fucking iron daggers I made in Skyrim trying to get my crafting skill. And that's where my mind goes. When you give me a system and you say like, hey, you can get 50 XP for crafting something. And I'm going to be honest with you. I think there is points given per skill used in 5th edition. I might be wrong. Sorry, comments, correct me if I'm wrong.
They'll have to pick up some slack. It's not something that I am.
Okay.
I mean, when you're talking about skill usage, I mean, certainly if it's solving a broader problem, that's probably built into the milestone.
But knowing that, even then, I would still find ways to try to like exploit. Like I will always try to. So you hit on it really well. I'm no longer focused on what my character would do. Not, I hate that expression, but you know what I'm saying. And I'm now more focused on how can I wring out every last drop of XP from this encounter.
Right.
And I'm no longer thinking about my character. I'm thinking about the mechanics.
Yeah. Well, and I think exactly what you said is why a XP system needs to motivate players in a very specific way.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you just said, if you know the system is go kill monsters and collect your XP,
Right.
Are you ever going to be incentivized to negotiate with them?
No, heck no.
Yeah.
No, there'd be no way.
And so that's really what has kind of soured me on the XP system that's been scaffolded up for 5th edition.
And
Because
I'll go even farther. Let's say you have a nuanced XP system. I will still find the way to get just a little bit more XP, especially once we get into the individual. Like let's say we track XP individually. Well, I'm going to make sure that I'm trying to get more than anyone else. Again, this is not a very healthy mindset, but that's where my mind goes.
yeah, and like I said, I think everything you've outlined. I know we've kind of departed from the gold for XP space because it outlined the earlier point, but nothing about that system stands in the way of you doing that. Is exactly what you should be doing.
Okay,
because you want to take as much gold out of there as possible.
Right.
And there is no gameplay drawback to you doing it. Well, here's the thing. You have to also understand that taking too much might leave you resource deprived, might leave you encumbered and vulnerable, might leave you. So you then again have to balance that. So
okay. So yeah. Okay.
It's a deal where for all of those reasons, it would be hard to lay out another system where everything you just said wouldn't begin to damage the experience.
Right.
But literally those motivations that you described make the experience with that system in place. So,
okay.
And again, for dungeon delving, absolutely. Again, that's not what is transpiring for us at our table generally.
Right.
And for, I think, the broader 5th edition ecosystem. But
gosh, man, I love your idea. You kind of the mad fun. Like I'm just imagining like, hey, you get so many tickets and you get to buy a prize. You know, so you want to come out with as many goals
even better. You know,
that 5e. So that's how you can incorporate in the 5e. I think it's just so brilliant. I love that idea.
Yep.
I can't wait.
Knowing that you like that, I'll probably not going to do that anymore.
Well, you are a DM, and that's what you do.
You know, I'll probably bring it up a few more times, but then just like when we're about to run it, I'll be like, "You wake up, the whole thing was just a dream."
I fucking hate that trope, dude. Super Mario 2 scarred me for life. Yeah, granted, it's not even it was originally Doki Doki Panic.
Is that what it was?
So it was originally sorry, internet. Super Mario 2 released in Japan, and the Japanese, in their infinite wisdom, decided it was too hard for us Americans. So our Super Mario 2 was actually a game called like Doki Doki Panic, which is why Super Mario 2 is so different than any other Super Mario.
I'm gonna this might make it into our hot takes video at some point, but ripping a turnip from the ground and throwing it, that's all I ever wanted from a Mario experience, frankly. So
fuck shooting fireballs and shit. I want to grab an egg out of a monster's mouth. Do you remember that fucking thing? Oh, so fucking
bad.
weird.
Is that Birdo?
Yeah, it's Birdo.
See?
It was
Yeah,
Birdo.
I know my Super Mario
androgynous. We're not quite sure what sex it is. I guess it shoots eggs, so I don't quite know. But
it's got a bow on its head. I'm pretty sure that it was supposed to be a.
No, dude.
Who knows?
You gotta be careful.
That said, little bit in the weeds there. But I think that given the 5th edition space and something I would be curious to pick your brain about, because it's been said.
I disagree. Whatever your thought is on it.
Well, it's not my thought, so you'll have to. It's been said by a number of people. Recently, I think I was watching a video by a Professor Dungeon Master over on Dungeon Craft, who was talking about and your Skyrim thing got me thinking about this, was talking about leveling as a curse. And this is a little bit of a tweak.
All right.
Hate
it
on our subject. The reason being fundamentally is that the system is designed to scale on your leveling, and because of the way in which the power curves move. Actually, I think Dungeon Masterpiece might have touched on this as well. A number of people have touched on the concept, but that there is a block of time in which the attrition of the scaling and the fact that your character can't further sharpen in a specific direction, it needs to begin to broaden out. So you're actually not getting more powerful at a given thing. You're getting better at other things, but the rest of the world doesn't care about that. And your Skyrim thing made me think about this. Did you ever find yourself in a situation where you got overzealous with your non-combat related skills, cranked them through the roof, and the Skyrim world scaled on you?
Yeah. I got wrecked so hard.
And the first time you come in contact with something, the game goes, oh, he's this level?
Yeah.
Well, he's probably good for it. And you go like, no, I've been doing herbalism and
picked
crafting
every flower.
4,000 daggers. So, but to some extent, I don't think it's as egregious as Skyrim was.
Yeah. God, that was bad.
But to some extent, something similar is happening. I mean, I give a big thumbs down to the CR system and balancing encounters in that fashion.
Yep.
But kind of by default, that's exactly what it's doing. It's scaling the difficulty of the. I think it does a poor enough job of that you can toss it out.
Yep.
But I also think it's a deal where here's a great example.
Okay.
Is this I think this helps illustrate the leveling thing, but I'm going to do it through AC. In a world in which I'm trying to produce encounters that will challenge you, you as a party. If you all have, let's say, a level 20 AC, let's say you all are at level 20. You're not, but let's say you were.
Okay.
Well, for me to introduce a challenging encounter, it's like none of you have a 20 AC. I have to be taking that into consideration.
Right.
Whereas if you have a 22 AC and someone else has a 13 AC, well, now if I'm building the encounter to hit a 22,
that 13 will get
13
wasted.
is going to get wasted. So I have to find that difference. And to some extent, the levels are doing the same thing. I mean, but it's just a deal where that the average growth of the party, and by no means do you have to do this. Like I said, I don't like the idea of balancing in the traditional sense encounters to begin with.
Right.
But I do like the idea of going, I don't want you to walk over every encounter, and I don't want you to be challenged to the death by every encounter.
Right.
I want to find interesting, challenging spaces. But that kind of, I think, outlines. I'm just curious with your thoughts on that, because I know for you, I probably have anyone at our table, maybe of anyone I know, the leveling in an RPG
huge
is it. Like
everything.
And I can appreciate appreciate the sentiment that leveling might not be the reward that, or as clear cut a reward as it appears to be. I know this is a hair off of our topic, but since we're talking about the means by which you level, I'm just really curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'll address it, but for me, why do I like leveling so much? For the most part, because it allows my character to do more new and interesting things that allow me to build an overall strategy. And that's what I like about it. So it's if I get a new magic item, don't get me wrong, that's cool and sweet. But very rarely is it like changing how I approach combat or approaching different things.
Right.
So that's huge. Because it takes a long time between levels, so I get to explore that, and then I get to add to my arsenal, and I get to explore that, then I get to add to my arsenal, I get to explore that. That is such a rewarding loop. I love that so much. I just I don't see.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of anticipated that you were not going to be on board with that notion. No, I mean, I think it's to each their own, but I think the idea that, again, especially rules as written, a big part of me building encounters has to do with, well, how many party members, what levels are they, and so, again, if you were being a jack of all trades and not being, not maximizing a certain aspect of a character, you could actually find yourself in a space where
you're fall behind,
where just because you're leveling outward, you're leveling horizontally instead of vertically. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I could see that, especially, it depends on your party too.
Yeah.
And if you have like the min-maxer who's super obsessed with vertical, and then you have the more like casual, the casual player.
Yeah, in the non-pejorative sense.
Yeah,
but I mean, someone
who
wants
isn't
to
rating guides and is just like, oh, that looks like a neat power, I'm going to go for that spell.
Yeah.
That makes no sense whatsoever, but, play your character the way you want. So I could see that, because, and the danger there is that and this is a danger of min-maxers in general that should be aware of, that you outshine your fellow players. But I don't think 5e, that's harder to do.
I think so. I think they've crammed so much into so many of the.
So I don't think that's as big a deal.
Yeah,
that's just me.
I wanted to make sure that you started to outline some of what you considered to be cons of the XP system. I will say, I think from a pacing standpoint, it's not major, but cool. You finish up, even if it's a little 3-round combat. You drive off some goblins, you kill them all, whatever. We still have to do that little bit of accountant work.
Yep.
Which is something that, again, I can do all of that after the session. I can do that away from the table. So that's I consider a con. It's a minor one. It is, like I said, it feels good. I mean, it's not like you're going, you're going like, oh man, I got to log more XP onto my character.
Yeah,
it's not something.
But it does slow down, and that's important to recognize.
There's a consideration for pacing there. Like I said, a minor one, but it's at least worth acknowledging.
It is on my con list. So but yeah.
I really think that for me and this will kind of be my summary. I know this was actually a pretty quick one. I think much like the systems themselves have an aptitude for delivering a certain kind of experience, the exact same can be said of the way in which you progress through the game.
Yes.
Because fundamentally, what motivates the characters, the protagonists of this story, will define the entire game. If what motivates them is gold, they're going to be spending a lot of time trying to get it.
That's exactly right. We're monkeys. What is our banana? Like, how do we get our bananas?
Yeah.
We will find our bananas once you show us how to.
And I think,
not to be super like.
No, you're a monkey and you like bananas.
I do like bananas.
I said it. That's one of my hot takes is players are monkeys and DMs are gods. That's going to be one of my hot takes. I'm honing in the list. So, no,
please roast this fucker in the comments.
No, for all the players out there who are going to hit in the comments, still let me have it because I did say it, but I say it in jest. But it's just a deal where I think that what the milestone system does so successfully is make character progression out of sight, out of mind for the players. And when that gets out of the way, basically you can either have a really good motivator or no motivator at all. And that unbounds players to some extent.
That's what to say that what that does is no longer are you saying like, hey, that's the tree with the bananas. It's like, hey, let's find our own bananas. And this is where I get enjoyment. This is where I find, this is the tree that I get my bananas from.
I think that should be the goal of any progression system. And I think, again, if you can choose between a bad XP system and virtually, I don't want to say virtually no system at all, but when I think about the process, I mean, it's a very fluid process not fluid. It's a very, I'm not having to sit down and crunch to near the same degree that I would if we were doing an XP space. But that's also because to some extent with the type of game we're playing, progression it only makes sense that it would follow the broader narrative. If you're playing a total sandbox experience where it's just like, go wherever you want, do whatever you want, grab that gold, get it back, get more powerful, then the process of progressing doesn't need to have the narrative weight.
Yeah, you're right.
And so I think the big takeaway is use a system that motivates your players such that the experience that's unfolding at the table is in harmony with the experience that you want. If we were running the Rovers campaign and I suddenly went, actually, we're doing gold for XP, the game changes completely. It's not the same game anymore. I mean, it's that important. It really is that big. What the prime directive is, and for that reason, like I said, people who don't want the Rovers experience very likely don't want the milestone system, and vice versa. They don't achieve the same goal in much the same way that 5th edition doesn't achieve the same goal as virtually any OSR entry, as 3.5. I mean, they all are achieving different things, and so I would just encourage everyone to find the progression system that makes players feel as though they are progressing and feel the reward of that progression, but not at the expense of them behaving in a way that is antithetical to the experience that's playing out at the table, the experience that you've all sat down in contract to have.
Yeah. No. Okay. Yeah. I have nothing really to add to that. That's exactly player side as well. Like, why do you play the game? Cool. Make sure is the reward system that you're engaging with at your table reinforcing that mode of play. If not, figure out like how you can make it work better. XP to gold is really interesting. But yeah, I think milestone in the 5e world, it works really well.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think there's a reason that in 5th edition it's garnered the popularity that it has. I don't think there's a huge amount more. I know what I would love to hear from players or DMs at your table. Certainly anything about what we've discussed here, but beyond that, I would love to hear. This is one I'm sure it's out there, and I have a completely different system.
Ooh, that would be cool.
That would be cool. You're not using milestone, you're not using XP.
Yeah.
So how are you progressing?
Yeah.
If such a table is out there doing it, tell me about that system, or tell me how you're blending the two, or tell me how you're modifying things.
I
just want to hear, what are you doing that's unique, that's achieving that goal at your table.
That's a great question.
I'd love to hear that from, like I said, whether you're a player or a DM. Tell me why it rocks, why it's awesome, why we need to consider it for our own game.
Yep.
Maybe it will achieve goals for us, maybe not.
Yep.
That's what I'd love to hear. You got anything else?
No. I think that's a great question for sure. I like that.
Cool.
So let's just keep this classic, my friends. You tell those beautiful people out there.
You know what, you beautiful people? Whatever it is that motivates you to reach for that banana, the world is yours.